Well, hello everybody and welcome to this week's episode of Fantastic Female Fridays. I am super excited to be here today where we're going to talk about the future of travel. And the reason we're going to do that is because we have a fantastic guest, a person that I've known for quite some time. Her name is Mary McKenna and we originally met at a conference in London. She set up a travel agency in Dublin called Tour America 25 years ago. And after 9/11 happened, within 3 days, she had also set up cruiseholidays.ie. Now, over that period of time, she has built the business and continued to grow and take on more people and offer more and more value to her customers right all over Ireland. And they also have a base in Orlando and beyond. Now, I'm personally a customer as well, happy to say. So I'm always focusing on telling you that I practice what I preach. So that was the reason that I wanted to talk to somebody who I knew could give us an insight into the world of travel today. Now, naturally enough, as I'm sure you can imagine, Mary's business has been hit quite badly by what has gone on with COVID. And her business I would consider quite a bellwether when it comes to the travel industry within Ireland. So as a result, I thought who better to ask on the show today to talk about the travel industry, the future of travel, and then we can also delve into stocks within the industry then afterwards. So can I ask you all to give Mary McKenna a lovely welcome, and I'm going to say hello to you all there on the chat. I can see Lisa has tuned in. Delighted to see you, Lisa. Lil Anonymous, great to see you too. And for everybody who's tuned in so far, we've been chatting on Twitter already. We've been chatting on Facebook already. And of course, now we're live on YouTube. So, Mary, first of all, you're really welcome to Fantastic Female Fridays. I should have also mentioned, of course, that you're also finalist in the recent Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year awards, as well as being a lead of Going for Growth. And I'm sure there's many more accolades as well that I could mention. But first of all, could you just maybe delve right in and just tell us what has been the impact do you see globally on all that's gone on in travel this year from the restrictions point of view, and also, of course, what's happened with the economy, etc.?
Yeah, so I actually think, Susan, our industry has been hit the worst of all industries. And, when I think back to the 18th of March, and I think that day will stick in my head, closing the two shops we had in Dublin and our shop in Cork and our office in Orlando. And I remember closing the door that day saying, God, I don't know when this office will open again. And, I kind of maybe a couple of days beforehand had done a YouTube video, a video for my customers and staff. And it was really showing, some of the staff down in Orlando having a great holiday and some of the staff on a cruise ship. So I was kind of thinking, is this a bit hyped up? And I got that totally wrong, I have to say. And I asked my marketing team to take down that video. I think what happened with COVID happened very, very fast. So I just want to paint a picture, a personal picture, the story of Tour America and what happened with us. So you got to remember, the States was closed. We got a call to say, you've got to get all your customers back home to Ireland. They were on cruise ships all over the States, and some of them had just arrived on their holidays, and we had to call them and say, look, I'm really sorry, but after 2 days of your holidays, we've got to get you back to Ireland. So we had to work 24 hours around the clock. And then what we had to do once we got them home, while we closed our offices, we couldn't stop working. We actually got busier than we've ever been. And that wasn't taking in bookings, by the way. And that part of our business was the most important part of our business, which was dealing with customers. And if you think what happened during that period, a lot of the airlines couldn't even answer their phones. A lot of companies weren't engaging with their customers. So we decided at that stage that we would engage with our customers and work with them. And that was like 7 days a week for a long period of time. So every other industry, your question was about how it's affected travel. Every other industry around that period of time was able to close up shop. That meant they could close their door, stop paying their salaries, which is salaries are the biggest cost of any business. Some landlords obviously were working with businesses, in particular retail. And we were the only industry, if you think of tourism, that had to continue working. So we had to keep employing staff during a time where no revenue was coming in. The airlines, the cruise companies in particular, the cruise companies were hit very, very badly. And, they were seen as an incubator for the COVID. And so, these are $1 billion ships to make, by the way, a great industry. The only way they make money is when they're 98% full. So they have to be literally, they can't go half empty. So they were hit very badly. And the airlines, you have Aer Lingus, were losing 1.5 million a day. Dublin Airport is losing 1 million a day. So this airport went from being an airport that handled 30 million travellers to having zero travellers going through the airport. So tourism was hit the worst. And that's throughout the world. So there isn't any country that escaped that. And you can see that by all the stocks and shares and the prices of what happened with the airlines.
Absolutely. Well, I had a trade myself on from April to June that I'm going to tell everybody about later on Carnival, the cruise company. I believe it's the largest cruise company in the world, and as you mentioned, their ships are they're $1 billion investments, that are floating on the sea. I also just want to make sure that anybody who's on today, feel free to send in your questions. I see Maria has sent her greetings. Diana says hello from London. Lisa sends her welcome, and of course our great friend Glenn Tompkins as well has said hello. But what I'm wondering here, Mary, is around the future of travel, because people still want to go on their holidays, and in particular as well, we were talking about this on Twitter earlier on today. I think that it's really important just to give you a couple of statistics really about the travel industry, right? This is pre-COVID now, of course, okay? So this is pre-COVID. Tourism makes up 10% of global GDP in 2019, and that's almost worth 9 trillion. So far, the COVID pandemic, now when I say so far, the latest statistics that I could get in August were that they cost the tourism industry $195 billion. I don't know if anybody else remembers looking at headlines by February of this year, but they were saying, the travel industry could be hit by 29 billion. So far, it's 195 billion. And that cost is only counting. But also, we do look at this area, and I suppose it's important to really talk about where are we talking. This includes cruises, this includes airlines, but this includes travel agents, it includes hospitality companies, service companies, and the lot. So where is this money gone? Does the consumer still want to spend the money on travel, or do you see fundamentally has that changed?
Right now, there's no spend on travel. And actually car sales have gone up in Dublin. I don't know if you saw that, Susan. And the first thought that came into my head is, oh my God, all the money they were spending on holidays, they're now buying cars. So, the Irish government are very clear, non-essential travel. And a lot of Irish people have decided they're not travelling. And the quarantine of 14 days, of course, is putting people off as well. But look, we have to adhere to the law, and COVID is serious, and we have to take it serious. I think, what I did as a business, and I'm only going to talk about travel agents because that's specific to us. Mm-hmm. So we're 1.3 billion of a turnover. We employ 3,500 staff in Ireland, and we're a licensed and bonded part of the business, which means your money is always protected. So I'll talk about my industry. It has been decimated, and the only companies that will survive are the ones that have retained profits and have good cash flow. So 2020 is a write-off. There is no business happening in 2020. So here's my predictions for 2021. I could be wrong, but this is what I think will happen. I think the domestic market will take there'll be a huge interest in the domestic market. I think short-haul flights will come back by Easter of 2021. I think corporate business travel will be probably around 25%. And the reason I say that is I think a lot of companies will look at the overheads of having their staff travel. And then I look at leisure. So in Ireland, again, I'll talk about the statistics. A lot of people just don't take one holiday, they take 2 or 3 holidays. So I think there'll be a lot more thought about maybe less flying and taking one good holiday. So I'm hoping to fall into that market, a niche. Orlando is our big destination, family holidays, a lot of planning goes into it. So that's where I think I'll see some travel starting in Easter of 2021, and it's going to be slow next year and come back in 2022. For the airlines, I think it's going to be really, really tough. I think the cruise companies will come out with huge safety statements, and they're already doing this. Richard Bain was on Bloomberg yesterday. He's a great speaker. He's, they're actually doing COVID tests before you get on a cruise ship. So they've got to get it right. The airlines will cut capacity. And you've seen that already in Ireland. Aer Lingus have cut a lot of their routes already. So that's what I think will happen. I think people are a lot more conscious of climate change. And I think a lot of people think about things. But I do believe there's a future for travel, and I think in particular, and I can only speak about Ireland, we're on an island, we like to get away to the sun, and I'm a glass half full person, so it's been a very tough time the last 6 months running a business with zero income. And I started a business with nothing 25 years ago. And I think the one thing I've learned is about resilience and agility and picking yourself up. So I think there's going to be a lot of virtual holidays as well. So my business is going to change as well, Susan.
Well, Lisa here says, speaking personally, I think we want to travel, but the restrictions make it so difficult. We have family across the country that we want to visit. I pray that you're right about 2021. Now, Mary, one of the reasons that I really wanted to have you on the show today is when you talk about resilience, you have got a lot of experience to back that up. And I would just like to hear, what was your experience like after 9/11? Because, of course, there was a huge security concern. This really affected people's willingness to travel in general, or to be mobile in general. I know 3 days later you had cruise holidays, and you personally were quite a resilient business. But could you tell us how did customers feel after 9/11, and how soon afterwards were they happy to get back onto planes?
COVID's made me think about the last 25 years so much. And the one thing, Susan, I've realised is there's no such thing as a straight line. It's been up and down, because you have ash cloud, you have, after starting a cruise holidays, a cruise ship sank, you have earthquakes, you have hurricanes, you've got recessions, so many things. But September the 11th, I'll probably never forget just where I was sitting with my sister in a coffee shop across the road from the office, and the realization that, the tragedy that had happened. And for me personally, my parents got married in the States. I lived in the States. We had a lot of family over there. So I think that was the first thing that really hit me, was the whole tragedy. And then realizing a couple of days later, my business was totally gone, and having to let go of staff, which I found the hardest thing. And actually, even during COVID, if you ever have to let go of people, I personally find that the hardest. But what I did, September the 11th experience was very good for preparation for COVID. I know that's a weird thing to say, but the one thing I realized, and what I saw about 3 months after September the 11th, where the Irish were the first to get on planes. They travelled like they never travelled before. It's like as if you locked them away. I mean, it was just, I couldn't believe the amount of bookings that we got 3 months later, having nothing. So I do think that we will get back and travel, and this will end. It's just, it's painful at the moment, and it's very hard on any business, and it's very hard on people around the world, and it's impacting us all. But the most important thing is that we do take care of ourselves, and we have something to look forward to, and that's what a holiday represents, is, a bit of a good time to make us forget everything that's happened. So that's the really good news, is that I think I can only talk about Irish people. They did move faster than the English. And even when they went to the States, we were able to get great deals for our Irish clients because the hotels weren't full. And of course, the minimum holidays we have in Ireland is 4 weeks, vis-a-vis 2 weeks in the States. and so the Irish people tend to go for 2 or 3 weeks to the States. So the hotels were saying, yes, Mary, we'll give you great deals because you come for such a length of time. So that was the experience from September the 11th. And as I said to you previously, what I learned was how, when I started my business, I certainly was an entrepreneur, but I didn't really know what I was going into, to be quite honest. And I had to educate myself and work on myself a lot. And experience has taught me so much. So it was preparing my business for those rocky moments. And that's what I've done now is, now I didn't expect it to go on 6 months and it looks like it's going to go on a year, but my business has been set up to get through these times. And that's what I've learned through the ash cloud, through September the 11th, through recession. I've made it a better business and one that's resilient, and I'm totally agile.
Well, I have to say, I've had plenty of chats with you over the years to back that up. Andrea here has a question. She says, hi, Mary. She's tuning in from Ottawa. You're very welcome. We heard news yesterday that our airlines will do testing right at the airport. Do you think this would help boost travel again? And I suppose it also ties in with the cruise question. If people are tested before they go on a cruise ship, do you think would that make a big difference?
Yeah, for some people it will, but if you live in Ireland, the Irish government have said non-essential travel. So most Irish people right now, and it looks like that's going to go on in Ireland for quite a while, are saying, well, we've been asked not to travel if we don't have to. I think if they said you can travel, I think a lot of Irish people would travel. So, I watched a thing, I shouldn't say a thing, I watched one of the internal airlines in the States. And, they certainly have a lot more domestic movement than we have in Ireland. I flew to France in August and there was no one on the plane. I just wanted to see what the experience was like going through an airport. So there were 20 people on a flight that has 170. So the Irish definitely are not moving. And even the countries that are green countries we're allowed to go to, they are tending to listen to the government's advice, which is non-essential travel, which is probably the right thing. But testing definitely on the cruise, again, I think it's going to be 2021. I think that's really good if you are about to go on a cruise ship and they're going to test you there and give a result. That makes it safe. Yeah. And
I also wanted to ask you, because I think that's a very good point, and I think everyone is looking for the incremental development so that things can come back safely as opposed to waiting for things to go back to normal, because, well, none of us know what that statement really means. But I also just want to talk to you about who your customer is. As you know, the show is called Fantastic Female Fridays and it's all around women and investing, and we'll certainly talk about the investing piece a little bit later on. But as I was looking into female driven travel, is that, or not even just travel, not even female driven, just who's driving travel. And I found interesting statistics that 80% of all travel decisions are made by women, independent of who they travel with, who pays for the trip.
That is correct.
And also then female travel has become a major phenomenon over the past few years, with travel companies dedicated to women-only clientele increasing by 230%. Now, the corporate market is different. I have often been on, whether it's that Dublin, London City red-eye flight in the morning and been looking around and been pretty much the minority, or when I've gone over to VectorVest in the States, in Charlotte or in Ohio, you can see that, there it tends to be more so men. Now, I was surprised actually that in the research that I looked at, that about 40% of corporate travellers are women. But could you maybe just tell us...
For a break from their families.
Well, possibly that too. So what's been your experience of the people coming in the door? Do women drive the bus here?
Yeah, they make the decisions, and that's a fact. And even when a man comes into the office or rings, he says, I have to go up and speak to my wife. So that is a fact, and we very much target that market as well. They do the research, the decisions are made for the holidays, and those statistics are absolutely accurate. It's 80%, and there's nothing else I can say about it. It's great. We target the female audience and they make the decisions. And, as somebody who likes to travel myself, I just love, it's a bit of freedom. I love getting away from everything, going to the airport. I spend 2 or 3 hours. I do all my shopping, Susan, in the airport. So I'm missing Dublin Airport a lot. I will go in and get my creams. I never get time to shop. So I literally go in, have a great time. I love the flight. I love the whole experience. If I'm away on my own, I really enjoy it. I'll sit down, have a meal, a glass of wine. So maybe I'm like a lot of other women as well. It's we're busy all the time. So it's a nice getaway as well.
Well, it's interesting the responses we're getting here. Maria says you're awesome for a start. Lisa says it's because we do it right the first time, lol. And then poor Glenn has just said, oh, sigh. Well, I would expect that. Mary, I just want to ask you 2 more questions before you go. One is on the theme parks. You mentioned that Orlando is one of your biggest, one of the biggest sources or destinations within your business. Personally, I love Disney. I have to say, having been there a few times, and I love the experience of it. I don't think you're ever too old, ever too old for Disney at all. But how do you see the future of that specific segment? So, perhaps we might take a look at that stock later on. But let's say they're Universal Studios, those types of experiences, taking thousands of people per day. What do you see about that?
And Universal is a fantastic park as well. That's my favourite, Susan. You can have Disney and I'll do Universal. And, I was just down in Universal in February. I was doing a lot of filming down there. But look, I'm very lucky. 2 things. I'm on the cruise advisory panel. And in particular with Universal, I'm on their advisory panel as well. And they're great companies, and so are Disney. And they'll do all the corporate correct things. So what they do need to figure out, and this is going to be an issue for them, is the queuing system. Now, I know if you stay on site in a Universal hotel or a Disney hotel, you don't have to queue. That is something they're going to have to look at, because the parks are packed, and it's going to be an issue going forward. Any place where crowds are gathering, they're going to have to really relook at. So they're doing some work on that. They've just closed the volcanic park until March 2021 today. We got an announcement on that. So they are absolutely going to do all the right things. I've no doubt about it. The hotels are fantastic, but for me, as a client, I would see they definitely do need to do work on the queues, and that has to be a thing of the past. It's the same, the cruise ships have done a lot of work around that. The buffets are gone. It won't be queuing like it was before. Actually, people hate it anyway, so it's probably a thing.
Yeah.
I think Universal are deep pockets, so probably a good stock or a share, whatever. And I think the cruise companies, I think if you were looking at cruise companies and you went in and they dropped so fast, but within a couple of weeks they went up a good bit, but they're not anywhere, they dropped by 70%. They're not anywhere up to where they were, but they will be good. Because they have to be. Not all cruise companies will make it, I think, but Royal Caribbean, Carnival, Norwegian, MSC Cruises, they all have deep pockets. And you're going to have to need deep pockets to get through this.
Yes, well, that's certainly sure. And the last question that I had wanted to ask you, but before I do that, I'm just going to say, Glenn says, to those of you who are new, please subscribe to the channel to continue this type of awesome content. Thanks, Glenn. And he also says, poor Glenn, lol. I think we all know, yeah, he didn't need the poor bit. Also, as well, of course, Mary is at Tour America. So if you want to take a look, they have a great Facebook page, and they're often talking about the great deals, etc. And then Diana says, oh my God, I liked you till you said you liked Disney. Okay, Diana, yes, I have to say I'm sticking to that. I do love Universal as well. And I'm pretty positive, enthusiastic person in general, where, I love new experiences anyway. And Maria then says, I worked for Disney in 1999, good company. So can I just ask Mary, as we wind this part of the show down, is what are you going to do differently in preparation for 2021 and 2022? What is specifically Tour America doing that's going to be different than in the last 25 years?
Yeah, so we're 25 years in business next week. Can you believe that, Susan? I've had to have a really good look at the business now, and it's going to be a totally different model. We'll have to restructure it. We are very niche, and customers come in to us or speak to us. we're 56% repeat business. We score very high net performing scores. We have our office in Orlando. So it's all about customer service. So I think retail for us is not going to be as strong a presence as it was in the past. So I really think I'd like to continue the personal experience for consumers. So I'd like to do more video where if somebody calls us, we're already doing Zoom. I set up Zoom holidays and Zoom travel in March straight away. And that we can show the documents on screen. But I really want to continue that personal contact. So we're looking very much, we wouldn't have done a huge amount online before. So we're going to look at redeveloping our website, have a boutique shop where people come in for coffee with us, and then look at video content on our business. So I'm restructuring the whole entire business, and the only thing I know is it'll be very different and change is coming. So it's to get the team along with me. And as you know, people find it hard to change and staff. So it's really to show them a picture, a good vision of the future, because I do think we have a future. I just think it's going to be a different world. It's going to be a different travel company. And I need to engage my team to get behind me. And at times I move at a pace and they go, just hold it, Mary. And I have plenty of ideas. So it's to drive them forward now. And I didn't open my retail shop, and I'm really glad we didn't. We're doing the business. We had home workers anyway, but half the team are working from home. It's working well. I didn't open my shops for safety reasons. I'm really glad now I didn't, and we won't be opening till January 2021. So it gives us time as well to work on the future and put the strategy in place and make sure we get the technology right. We have very good technology, but technology is a really good partner for travel. And we're not Expedia. We're a very niche personal service. We do it well. I really care about the customer. They come first. And the two things that are value proposition is really the touch base, and that somebody goes away with us and has a great holiday and comes back and said they really took care of me and they gave me the right price and their staff were lovely.
Well, on that note, just to take you through another couple of comments here. So Mash Luxury Transportation says, I love Universal too. This is what this is turning into, guys. Here is this Disney versus Universal. And they say Halloween was always a great time of year. Now that freaked me out. I was in Universal for their, whatever you call it, at Halloween night, and I found it super scary. And I'm usually not easily scared. Glenn said, I'm loving this insight from someone who's actually in the industry. Exactly, Glenn. And that's really why I wanted to make sure that I want to bring Mary in. And Maria says, Glenn, be patient. Lisa says, I agree, Glenn. As you know, my husband works for an airline, and seeing Mary's view gives me hope. Diana says, good luck, Mary. Take them all with you. I'm sure it will go well. Glenn says, I think the people working from home can and will change the paradigm for business travel, but people are still wanting to travel for a vacation. So, Mary, thanks so much indeed for your insights today. You've been an amazing guest. And the comments keep coming in here. So I'm really appreciative to you and for giving your time and your insight today. Thanks so much.
My pleasure, Susan, and thank you to all your guests as well. It was great to do this today. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Mary, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Bye.
Now, guys, therefore, a woman who truly knows an awful lot about the area. As I say, she is a fantastic woman. She's a brilliant woman. She's an incredibly hard worker as well. And I think that there's an awful lot we can take out of that. Number one is capacity at the airline seems to be falling in the short term. I think a lot of us knew that, but what's different is just about the longer term. And I think Mary is right. Short haul will recover earlier, but also if corporate travel changes dramatically, just like Glenn has mentioned there, well then we are looking at a very different paradigm. Personally, I was due to be in Belgium 2 weeks ago to present at a trade show for VectorVest Europe. We ended up, of course, the trade show was virtual and I did a pre-record instead. I would have been at workshops right around Belgium and the Netherlands and so on. I was talking to somebody in France today. A lot of those meetings would have taken place in person, but I'm sure they would recover those short haul trips for sure. Definitely. I have to say, I think people are absolutely delighted to take on vacations anytime. So therefore, I do think that we're looking at a resurgence there. Looking here again at a couple of what you're saying, lots of you saying thank you to Mary, and I will pass those on to her. So Maria says, my daughter's a travelling nurse and her favourite stock is AAL. Okay. Glenn said, thanks, Mary. Please put up the likes in the room, folks. Thanks, Glenn. Andrea said, Mary, apart from cruise lines, airlines, hotels, what other businesses are really needed in the COVID era, technology, and what are you using more of to support your business? Actually, Andrea, I'd have loved to put that question to her for sure. So what I'm going to do now is let's take a look at the program. I want to tell you how, I was telling you that earlier, I want to tell you about the trade that I made myself when it came to, going to go over here, when it came to the travel industry much earlier, right? And some people told me I was absolutely crazy, but I wasn't. Let me take you over here and let's take a look at CCL, okay? Now here's CCL, okay? So if you just take a look at the shape of this stock. What happened here was the stock was trading at up over $50, and then after that, then it moved to where it just basically collapsed, almost down. It went below 10. So I had seen this, and I know Carnival. I first of all, I'm a cruise. I love cruises myself. I've been on 4, and I think that they're great, and I also think that they are a fantastic business model. I'd love to actually hear just on the chat. Tell us your experiences of what you have felt from a business point of view. What you think about cruise ships. I think their cost structure. I think the buying in bulk. I think the experiences. I think they really are a brilliant business model. Anyway, then I saw the collapse here. But then when I actually went back, right? Let's go back to this time. So I went back here and I saw. I'm just going to click on back here. Not that far back. I think it was around about Aprilish, okay? Now, at that time, if I look over now to the right-hand side, so it was a sell. I recognize that, right? It was a sell. I don't normally take action when I see a sell recommendation, but all the same, I saw the PE ratio was 3.48, okay? I saw the VST was at 0.89, and I saw the relative safety was at 0.78. And so all of this is bad. Fundamentally, this is all bad, right? None of this is good. However, you know what else I spotted? Is I put on the RT. So I put on the RT down here, and what I noticed was that the RT was accelerating, really quickly accelerating. Now, it was coming off a really, really low floor. So the RT was about a 0.1. By the way, to anybody who doesn't know what the RT is, it's the relative timing feature in VectorVest. It looks at the direction, magnitude, and dynamics of a share price. Okay, that's what it does. So then after that, then what I did was I was looking at how this was really, really increasing quite strongly, and there seemed to be a lot of resilience here in the stock's price. Now, what that was actually predicting was this little pop. Now that little pop went from 12 to 15. Like, that was a 20% gain pretty quickly. So of course, the other thing that was now happening was that there was a lot of volatility, and there was a lot more to come. So what I did was that I sold a put. And bear in mind now, I have told several people the story since. I sold a put on the stock. And I did so because it had raised money successfully from the bond market. There was a big injection of cash. It was actually from the Saudi government. I had just spotted that on a news story. So I went in here and then I saw the RT was rising. The PE ratio was very low. Then I took a look at the options market. And what I actually ended up doing was selling a put option to buy the stock at $12.50. But I got something like $3.89 in premium. So I'd have been buying the stock if I had to buy it at just over $8. Round about just over $8. Now $8 was going to be possibly, I'm just going to check its low price. Yeah, $8 was as close to the low price as it was ever going to be. And that's what I did. That is ultimately what I did. I sold a put, and now let me tell you what actually happened after that. So then, of course, the stock took off, right? That's not what you really want to see happening if you've sold a put. Because if you sell a put option, then the share price basically takes off. You have capped the amount of money that you can receive by the premium amount that you've got, whereas you'd be better off buying the stock. Anyway, on we went. Stock expired worthless. We all lived happily ever after. I kept my money. But look at what has happened since. Is basically nothing. The stock has just gone up and down and 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 up and down. Beautiful when it comes to any type of option premium. Now, would I be buying Carnival from the point of view of the fundamentals? Well, let's take a look at it today. The PE ratio is minus. The company is losing money. I don't think really that that's a surprise to anybody. But, when you're looking at a company that's losing money, that just gives you a whole other ballgame. Remember what Mary said. is the companies that are going to make it are the companies that can grow their earnings. Steve Chappell always says, money goes where money grows. So I wouldn't be buying, I don't buy companies that don't make money from a profit point of view. But all the same, it is interesting to watch when you see that people have thrown in the towel, as they had at that stage when I sold that put. It was actually it was a bottom fishing approach. It was actually quite a conservative, quite a conservative thing to do at the time. Glenn mentions here, they operate like a lone city. The business model is amazing to accommodate all the people who are on them and maximizing their experience and comfort. Awesome how they can do this. And then Mash says CCL, that's a great channel. Okay, so just want to let you know in terms of where the sector is at, broadly speaking, like super broadly speaking. When we look, I tried to, in advance in preparation for the show, I tried to think about how could we just like compare how much the stock market in those sectors have actually fallen and how they've adjusted. So one of them is that an airline ETF called Jets has fallen around about half since the beginning of the year. But away, and this goes back to your question, I think it's Maria, but let me go back and just check that I have the right name. Andrea, when she asked about technology. Travel tech, on the other hand, the away ETF, in that case, actually, that has been far more resilient than the travel sector in general. So now what I think might be a well worthwhile exercise is let's go and take a look at some of the companies that Mary suggested. Let's create a watch list. Going to create a new watch list, and I of course have to create a group. Of course, please do keep your comments and questions. If there's any particular stock you'd like me to analyze for you, please pop it into the chat there and we'll take a look and see. So I am going to go here now to my watch lists, and I'm going to put in a new one called travel. So please do pop in your suggestions. I have my VectorVest US open. So here, please do feel free to let me know what particularly you might be interested in. So she mentioned, for example, Royal Caribbean. We spoke about, I'm just going to let that update. We spoke about Disney that Diana and I had a chat about. We spoke about Universal. No, I'm not sure that any of those are the ones that I'm looking for. Okay, so let me come back to that one. And we also spoke about, let's put in CCL there. And who was it? Maria. Maria also said about AAL. Oh, that's just gone on me there now. I'm going to put in AAL. American Airlines, that's what I thought. I actually bought and sold those during it all as well, Maria, I have to say. I'm a pretty good customer of them all. Now, I think that might be slightly hard to see. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to show you a quick tip here that you can use in VectorVest. If you want to change the size of the font, I'm going to right click that. I'm going to go to layout, and then when layout appears, then I'm going to click up here to font. I'm going to change that to say 16 and click OK. And click OK. And now you'll see magic. Boom! Now you see everything is much bigger, and I'm going to right click here and I'm going to auto fit all columns. Now, much easier to see. So if we take a look here at Royal Caribbean, let's take a look at this stock first, right? So Royal Caribbean, we can see here the value of the stock is $50.45. The price, on the other hand, as you can see, it's down a little bit today. Now, I also want to mention, before actually I go on at all here, if you come to the homepage, if you go to the homepage, you'll see here is that I noticed the second headline on the US market news is airlines and cruises fall as a result of the diagnosis overnight. Okay, so and if you I took a look and I read into that article. Basically, since the president of the US has tested positive, there is a concern that then might affect the strategy that the US White House has in relation to opening up the economy and travel and so on like that. So that really is the rationale behind that piece. I don't need to click on it or anything. It's there for any of you who wanted to see it. So if I go back over here now into my viewer, Lisa's just saying, wow, my old eyes love that change, lol. Thanks, Lisa. We're really delighted you're part of our community. And Glenn, who's not Glenn Tompkins, said, "Hi Mary, in your experience, is there a community of angel investors in the travel booking space for an early stage to do great opportunities?" Thank you. Glenn, that would be a great question to put to her. Now, unfortunately, she's gone, but I can certainly send all those questions and feedback across to her. So, Royal Caribbean over here then, as you can see, price is down today, as I mentioned, particularly driven, partly driven anyway, by that story that broke overnight. Relative value is under 1, and relative safety is under 1, but relative timing is at 1.22. So overall, we've got a VST of 0.96. Now, what I'm guessing by this, and I always do this, I don't look up the stocks in advance of Fantastic Female Fridays, and I'll tell you why. I do it intentionally, I promise you. Is because if I look up the stocks beforehand, then you don't get the authentic version of how to actually analyze something like this directly, okay? And that's why it's so important that I show you how I look at the system from the very beginning. So what I can see here is that if RT is at 1.22, above 1 is favourable, below 1 is unfavourable. That means that the direction, the magnitude, and the dynamics of that share price are moving to the upside. Now, let's check if I'm right, because I haven't looked at it. Okay, I'm just going to graph this. Actually, yeah, I graph all the stocks. Just going to move it across here to my other screen. And there you go. There you go. You can see here's Royal Caribbean just rising here, rising nicely there. So you can see it had the lowest at the 18th of March, the date that Mary also had to close. The lowest price that day was at 20.55. It has now, or since then, trebled. I have been on a Royal Caribbean cruise. Again, an amazing business model. Truly an amazing business model. Look at the RT here. The RT has been rising, and it particularly jumped over 1 since the 22nd of August. So that's an interesting one. Again, its relative safety, naturally enough, is below 1. We can see that it is losing money at the moment. PE ratios at -14, etc. So you can see there how to take a look at a stock of that nature. If we take a look at Disney, we can see the value here. Interesting. VectorVest values this stock at significantly lower than the share price. The relative value of this is low, but the relative safety is quite significant. We can also see the RT is above 1 as well. Then if we go down here, let's take a look at American. Maria, I believe. Yep, this is just for you. So Maria, if we take a look here at American, we see here that the relative value is tiny. It's at 0.05. Share price is at 12.93, and the value of the share here, as per the algorithm used by the VectorVest system, is a fraction of that. Of course, bearing in mind what Mary said, and I think, as I say, we can all agree that when it comes to looking at the airlines, and particularly how they're going to survive and how they're going to make money, even if you look at the distinguishing factor between economy and business class, like business class is hugely profitable, far more so than economy. Generally, I mean, I've been fortunate from time to time to travel on business class myself. Generally, when someone else, when somebody else has been paying for it, because I personally, I'm not at that level yet where I'm traveling on my own dollar in business class. But anyway, and the whole point there is that ultimately business class can be driven either by high wealth or alternatively corporate travel. And if corporate travel is going to reduce, Mary mentioned a figure there, for example, of even down to a quarter of what it used to be, then of course airlines have got a significant problem, or else we're going to see new business models, possibly new airlines, etc. So we can see there, Maria, the relative value is very low. We can see relative safety is very low, and today it's having a great day. It's up 2.7% and continuing. And then Carnival. So as you can see there, Carnival really didn't have great fundamentals. Not when I was talking, even when I was investing in an option, right? Again, I was generating a really juicy premium. I was getting a great premium, taking it from the volatility of the stock, knowing that I was going to be buying a bottom fishing stock at an even significantly lower price than it was trading at in the market at the time. And therefore, as a result, I knew, I had a pretty good idea of what I was doing. Now, I'm going to do one last thing before we go, is I want to show you how to look at a sector, right? Let's say, broadly speaking, you say, for example, Lil Anonymous said Jets 2, right? That is the name of an ETF. And let's just say we want to delve into a sector. here is what VectorVest does. Here's the way in which it actually structures that. Let me just, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to just turn off the program here for a moment. Glenn says, possibility, airlines buying up other airlines. Absolutely, then. That's another good idea. Lisa says, for conservatives such as myself, the CI is a bit scary. Lisa, I'm so with you. Love the CI, and I've told you guys about that before. But here's what I do want to tell you is the way in which the default system is set up, right? And it's a good way of thinking about this is, right, let's start here. If we're going to look at sectors, all of them. Now, I picked travel today because I knew Mary would have a lot of insights for you. It sounds like you agreed with me, which is great. And I knew that it's an area, we all have to go on our holidays. And I love the States. I just love the States. And I love Canada. And I love Europe. And really, I love to travel. There's been very few places in the world where I wouldn't go back again when given the chance. So I knew that. And I know that this sector has been really pummeled from an investment point of view. And I know it's highly volatile based on, like, so many times, worries around another wave, joy about a vaccine, how is the oil price affecting this? And then, of course, generally the economic concerns as well, and so on like that. But let's say you didn't want to look at one sector, you want to look at sectors overall. Well, then what you would do when it comes to this is you might look at the fastest growing sectors. And what I mean by the fastest growing, it loops me back to what I just mentioned to you, which is RT, relative timing. The sector that is moving with the fastest direction, magnitude and dynamics. Within the fastest sector, you might want to look for the fastest growing industry. What's the difference between an industry and a sector, you might say? Well, a sector looks at how is much more macro. It's an umbrella term in comparison to an industry. And an industry, on the other hand, then is a subsector. So then you might say, right, what's the fastest growing sector? What's the fastest growing industry? And then look for your stocks that have the best combination of value, safety, and timing. And that is exactly the way, if you look over here now, that is exactly the way in which the VectorVest system is defaulted. Now, you can always amend this if you do use the system, but if you don't, it's a very good way of thinking about it. So I go to Stock Viewer, and what's going to happen here now is all the stocks appear, right? So rather than start from a stock and move up into different sectors and so on, we can go to Sector Viewer. All I need to do now is to double click. So I'm just going to double click on the fastest moving sector here is building, for example. If I was to look at, possibly I could find some of what we were talking about today in the leisure industry. Possibly I could find it in transportation. That's probably where airlines, etc. would be. And I could go on, okay? So let's say I am going to look for the fastest growing sector. Double click on building, and then you can see another screen opens up. Then in here we have the top, the fastest growing. So you can see all of these are the building sector. Within here then we have the subsectors, which are industries. Double click here, and then we get the individual stocks as well. And then as you can see here, the stocks are structured by value, safety, and timing. So that is another approach that you can take. I'm just going to show you about how, let's take a look at leisure. Let's see where some of the industries we were talking about today, let's see if they're in here. Double click on leisure. And we have leisure products, leisure gaming, leisure hotels and motels, toys, games, leisure services. And again, I leave it to you to double click on there and to take a look around there. So, ladies and indeed gentlemen, as you know, you're always more than welcome here at our sessions. I absolutely love presenting this show to you. I hope today you got value, and I'd love to just hear from you. What do you think? Should we bring on more guests to give us more insights like this, where I can interview them and where we can then go from there and really look into nuances within the market? Or would you prefer if we simply stuck to me talking to you and I can upskill you on very different elements? Do you want a combination? I'd really love to hear from you today. So do chat in there. I'd really be delighted to get your feedback from it. I have to say, I really enjoy talking to Mary, and I have so many other people in mind who can give us the insight, who are truly looking at this and particularly seeing how they're making decisions within the sectors and the industries and little corners of the market who can tell us exactly how it's going. Have to say, you know what I didn't know? I didn't know that Mary was on an advisory panel to Universal. Didn't know that. So who knows what else we've got going on. Glenn said drilling down. Yeah, for sure. Drilling down through the sectors can really can reveal some interesting stocks. Maria said, I made money speculating with Boeing. Thankfully, I'd like to tell you, Maria, I bought and sold Boeing myself as well over the past couple of months and did well there. Mash says, hey Glenn, energy is top 5. And okay, that's great. Certainly, the last time we had Trending Thursdays, Glenn and I had a good chat about clean energy. Maria said, listening to you is very informative. Thank you, Maria. That's lovely. That's really, really lovely to hear. Lisa said, oh, such a quandary. I like the guest too. I vote for both. Good. Well, you know what? Just keep on coming back to us, Lisa, and we'll make sure that we have lots of combinations going on there. So, ladies and gentlemen, I wish you a fantastic weekend. I've thoroughly enjoyed my time with you. We started the show being a 30-minute show, and now, as you can see, we've advanced that further. And that is because I think that it's really important that we get everything discussed here, and I want to bring you and your comments right into the core of the show, and that's why I spend as much time to do that. Lil Anonymous said, would love to hear about educational tech. It's an area actually I'm very passionate about that myself. Let me have a think about that for sure. But on that note, thank you all so much. Have a lovely weekend and goodbye.